performance. And furthermore, we support teams and companies when it comes to distributed responsibilities or scaling in a sustainable way. So, and we enable teams in improving their collaboration in the hybrid world. So, as you already heard, my passion is to create trust and energy for positive change in teams and company. And in my last position as a COO at Hinderling Volkart, I was responsible for the development of the culture in this company. And in this agency, innovation was the key to success. And that's why the question, how could we unlock the potential of a diverse team in a project team, was my challenge to find an answer. And yes, Christian, would you like to share some words about you?
I can, but a lot of things have already been said. So maybe something that has been following me in my professional career was like the question of how can we challenge the status quo, and maybe that's also something that threw me into that new way into collaboration business, because I feel like collaboration has been notioned as something that's like painful and often not fun. It's easier to work on something on your own, and actually I made the experience that it can be quite fun and fruitful to work with your collaborators together. But that's not always the case, but there needs to be some kind of recipe that puts that into motion. So that's what actually motivated me to start working on that business together with Claudia in TICO.
Right. So what made Christian and me believing in the power of connected people, and why are we convinced about the potential of a diverse team? Because it's definitely not easy to bring people together in a diverse team. But Christian and I have experienced a lot of digitalization projects, and the goal was always to find innovative solution project with different experts from data science, coders, marketing, sales, communication, brand, and so on and so on. People with lots of experience and knowledge. And when we got the new project on the table, people were always motivated and interested and engaged, because they always know we have to find innovative solutions. And the goal was clear. We had the feeling that the goal was clear, and we had also the feeling that we are all in the same boat and on the same direction, and we had a feeling of being a team together. But what happens a few weeks after, or a few months after? Sometimes projects slow down, there were delays, problems or challenges couldn't be solved, and unfortunately we realized the goal wasn't that clear. The feeling of a team was gone, and everyone was working on their own goals. And I'm sure you all know this moment in projects, and we ask ourselves, why do we experience this moment? And because the team members didn't understand each other at all. And although they had this feeling of understanding each other in the beginning, so why did this happen? The answer is quite simple, but because we are all unique, and because we are not able to understand this uniqueness in a very, very short time. But the question is, how can we make this uniqueness visible in our work, in our collaboration? And what I could already mention is that the key to success is to capture this uniqueness and to create a shared language. So then only when we can name our uniqueness, we can understand, and only what we can understand and relate to something, we are able to appreciate. But in order to make this uniqueness visible and to develop the shared language, a change of mindset is needed in leading our projects. And I think this is the mind change we have to focus on, from project focus to a focus of project and people. Because when we focus on the people and on the relationship between the people, then we strengthen the collaboration and we create a more effective communication. But let's discover together how we can make our uniqueness visible.
Exactly, and for that we have a small little exercise where we want to demonstrate you how we can create like a shared language around our differences and our similarities. Because only if we have that language and we can talk about how we see the world and how we're actually different, then we're gonna master diversity together. And for that, I invite you, if you're happy with that, to like put on your camera so we can all see you, because we're gonna do some interactive session that's following up together. Thank you very much. They had some like different understanding of some words, and I want to give you a bit of context around that concept of how those things start existing and how we can use them to actually create that understanding that we need in like diversity. The first thing is the strengths. That's what we've been talking about. That's like our behavior, how we act in a different world. And that's the metaphor we use is like a buoy on a water surface. This strength, this behavior is different based on the circumstances that we are in. It might be that we have to act under pressure, as in the examples. Maybe we have a communication inside a small team. Maybe we have a communication out with outsiders, with the researchers. That's like different situations, and that triggers the use of different strengths in us. Now, sometimes as a team we agree on which strengths to use, and sometimes we have totally opposing opinions on which strengths to use. But that doesn't really matter. The important thing is that each and every one of us has something that motivates him to use that kind of strengths in that situation. That's like the picture. If you have to put a picture to that buoy, it's the anchor that actually grounds the buoy at its place, where it's like where it's grounded, where it's anchored. That motivation to reach something, or what we want to contribute to the world, to a team, that's like our basic motivation, why we use a certain strength or how we interpret a certain strength. Based on that motivation, we also have a bit different communication styles. We have like differences in how we handle conflict based on what our anchor is. We have like, we see things a bit differently. And that's what we encourage teams with like a diverse background, not even with a diverse background. Sometimes it's like the same people, or this obviously the same, it looks like they will be very similar people, but if we start talking about those things, we start realizing, oh, we don't share that common motivation. We have different motivations in our team. And as soon as you can start talking about that, if you have a framework, a shared language around that, and you can start talking about those differences, then those big diversity challenges, those differences in a team that we realize start to disappear. Because as Claudia said, we can name our differences, we can put words in it, and that's how we can start appreciating it. Now, in our work, we use a framework that's been that's called the strength deployment inventory. There's like different kinds of frameworks out there that you can use to make those things visible. But what we encourage you to do is, if you talk about diversity, make those things visible and start discussions around it. Create that shared language in your team so that you can name the differences. And as soon as we can name the differences, we can build bridges around them. SDI says they create results through relationships, because SDI is a framework that is really based on the relationships, while a lot of other frameworks are more like based on one person and how we are. Now, the most important thing we want you to do around those things is to be a better team members by actually talking about those motivations. Tell people why you use your strengths, what motivates you, what drives you at work, and why you would follow a certain path. And be curious about those same things with your team members, because sometimes other team members want to follow a different path. So be curious and try to find out what's behind that. Why do they want to do that? How do they see the world? What drives them? And that's how you can start like bridging those differences in a diverse team. So as a last thing, to put a bit more context around that concept of that motivation, that SDI says we're all motivated by 3 different drivers. That there's like a driver for people, the blue driver, that we want to help others. That there's a driver for performance, that we want to achieve results. We set goals, we take measures, we go there, and we want to be appreciated for getting those results. And there's a third driver, the process, a drive to create structure, order, processes, and follow those plans that we make. And each and every one of us is a unique mix between those 3 drivers. There's no one who's just blue. There's no one who's just red. There's no one who's just green. So maybe you start thinking for like 30 seconds. What do you think? Which one of those is most dominant in yourself? Good. And with that, we jump into some learnings that we made in our work. Claudia.
Yes, now we have seen that we can how we can make our uniqueness visible, and how we can develop the common language for it. And we love this concept really, because the focus is on building bridges and on the collaboration, and it's not the focus on how you are and how I am. It's how we can work together and how we can communicate effective. So what's the benefit of the shared language? After some workshops with teams and of course the assessment behind, we realized that the knowledge about the unique motivation and strengths allows people to create an effective communication and with their peers, and this leads to less misunderstandings and of course to less tension in collaboration. And thanks to their shared language around the uniqueness and the diversity, team members are able to name their differences and have open and trustful conversation together around the project and around this shared language. And I think this is also a point that prevents or is the best prevention against possible conflicts. And then at the start of new projects, we look at our motives and strengths when we have the results from the assessment, and then we ask ourselves, what do we have in common in our project team? What could be weaknesses? What could be strengths in the team? And through this consolidation and this communication about these motives, the feeling that we are much quicker in the zone of a high performance team is, of course, given. And last but not least, we have stronger relationships because, as you could imagine, we communicate about our strengths, about our motives, and we get to know each other on a human level. And so we shift the focus from only focus on the project side to a focus from project and people in the project. And I think with these benefits, we are ready to answer your questions and thoughts.
So I will just, while everyone's thinking about questions, I will just jump in with one. So if I am sort of starting my next project, would you then suggest that I open up a Miro board and I go through these three steps like this? We now were talking about the rescue team, but then you would apply this to the project. So very hands-on question. Would you then go through planning and then execution? So would you do that to start finding the mutual?
That's actually an interesting question. I've never asked myself that question. What we usually do is we take those three motives that I showed up, and we ask people to find or to think about which one is most dominant in themselves. And then we let them share those things, because that, first of all, it gives us an impression of who is on our team, what is important to them. Someone maybe wants more structure and process in a team. Someone else doesn't care about it. He just wants to, or she just wants to create results. If we know that, that's okay. But also if we know that everyone just wants to create structure, we know that maybe we need someone who drives us forward, who wants to achieve results. That's what we do when we start a project.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and of course there is it's very important is in this case that you get to know a little bit more who is these three Ausprägungen.
The three motives, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, the three motives. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? I'm going to just checking. Yeah, not at the moment. No. I'm still very interested in the sort of very concrete situation. So we talk about, I come together with my team, and then we talk about the red, blue, and green personalities. And of course, regarding the project we are on then, right? And
exactly. That is one finding we had in the last few months and weeks, that to connect the motives and the results from the assessments really quick with the work, also to not only in the beginning of a project, also in the middle of a project or in a retro moment is really interesting. And how can we give each other a more effective feedback or appreciation? This is all a really rich foundation to improve communication and to improve or to build new bridges.
And do you also suggest that sort of while you're in the project and you have these different project steps, and sometimes when you're so much inside the project, you kind of forget, like an objective view on everything. Do you also suggest to have a moment where you recall, everyone stop for a moment, let's recall what we promised or what we analyzed in the beginning of the, this kind of, I think that I could imagine that's very helpful. And then, of course, in the reflection at the end, of course, as well.
Yeah, exactly. Doing reflections during projects. Sometimes it even helps, especially if it's a team that is like really diverse. It might help that you do that after every meeting. You do a quick round of like 5 minutes, and everyone talks about how was that meeting for me with my motivation. Was I able to create enough? Was there enough structure in that meeting for me? Someone else, did we achieve enough results? Like share those things so that you get to know each other and actually learn what everyone on the team needs, and take the measures to create a more effective team together.
Yes, and also to really use this information and these results in micro interaction during the project together. I think this is a really helpful to not leave these results and go on.
I think it's also, I imagine, when you can remind each other of this level of discussion, that you kind of now it's about the effectiveness. Are we effective? And it's kind of a reminder. Let's talk about this now on that mutual language that we define and so on. That it helps a lot to also in a moment, when you can't see anything more because you're so much in, stressed or whatever. Then you can kind of make this safe space, and then you talk together.
Yeah, it's really easy to label feelings and emotions. We know this, or I know this situation when I have the feeling to go on and step ahead and not be in a mood of reflecting things and analyzing things. Then I can label, hey, sorry, Christian, I'm really motivated by my red blue motivation, and at the moment I'm really red. And then we can neutralize the situation through this communication. So
that's that framework, that shared language that you have. If someone says, hey, I'm so red right now.
It's like a code inside a code. You can
exactly.
And it's not that this person is just impatient at the moment. It's really like what drives them in their core. That is just like there's a need for that. So, and we can't change that. Otherwise, we often think, oh, this person is like getting on my nerves. She's so impatient. She wants to, but if that's not, it's not like to do us harm, but it's who this person is, and that makes it much easier to actually create a healthy relationship with each other.
Yeah. So I think at this point. Maybe a quick call. Are there any other questions you would like to pose? Really big thank you to Christian and Claudia. It was very enlightening for myself, and I'm sure also for the others.